Some of you guys who follow my channel know my history with Chris Reeve knives. For those of you who don't, I'm going to run you through it real fast. This is the Sabenza 21. I purchased this knife when I first got back into knife collecting. I bought a Piranha Auto after watching a bunch of Nut and Fancy reviews and fell in love with that knife. From there, I think I purchased one or two other knives, and then I made this purchase. This was probably the most expensive knife I had ever seen at the time. It was roughly, I want to say $400. I bought it in a local knife shop. Loved how smooth it was. It's just a fantastic knife. I knew that Chris Reeve had a really good warranty on their blades, so I got my Edge Pro Apex and I figured I'll go ahead and sharpen this knife up and I can send it back into Chris Reeve and have a blade replaced for 150 bucks. So I used this knife to learn how to sharpen on the Edge Pro Apex. After I did that, I took some Scotch-Brite and I got rid of that chalky feeling that you have on the scales. I tried anodizing them, and I also anodized the clip. Well, as I sharpened the knife on the EPA, the apex turned to black dust and just crumbled away. I don't know what caused it. I've never had any other knife do that. It's the first time I had ever experienced it. I was still learning on the Edge Pro, so I had no idea what was going on. I think what was probably going on was it was a bad heat treat. I think the edge just couldn't hold stability and was crumbling. I was sharpening it at 15 degrees per side and it just couldn't hold that angle. What I ended up doing was convexing the edge pretty badly, and I sharpened away several millimeters of knife. When I got to the tip area especially, I probably removed about that much of the tip before I got into good steel that was stable enough to get an edge on and hold it. I sent the knife in to Chris Reeve. They sent me an email back saying that they couldn't touch the knife and asked me to call them. When I got on the phone with them, they told me that my warranty was voided because I took Scotch-Brite to the scales and because I had anodized the pocket clip. They told me that there was nothing they could do with the knife. They couldn't open it up. Once the knife is voided, once the warranty is voided, if they open it up and something's wrong internally, they will not be liable for it. I asked them if I could just pay the money and have them ship me back the blade. I didn't care. If they didn't open it up, I would fit the knife myself. And they told me no, they didn't do that sort of thing because each knife is fitted with the lock bar. And they went into some details about how the lockup has to be a certain percentage. So they sent the knife back, untouched, after I was willing to pay to have a new blade replaced. Made a video, and I made mention of this fact. Matthew Forrest, a viewer of my channel, saw that video, and he had a knife at Chris Reeve being repaired for warranty work. He took it upon himself to speak with Alicia, who is one of the leads for Chris Reeve knives, and explain to her my story, and she had him contact me and refer me back to herself. They wanted to take another look at the knife and see if there was something they could do to go ahead and repair it. I was a little skeptical at first, but I went ahead and sent the knife back for a second time. When she received the knife, she told me that the lock bar where I had took Scotch-Brite and sanded down the scales, she told me that the lock bar had lost a little bit of surface and that it was almost to the point that they couldn't touch it. However, she felt that it was sufficient that they could repair it. She told me that because they had to re-blast the handles, I would have to pay $150 for the blade plus an additional $30 to have the handles re-blasted. I said, fine, do what you gotta do. I want to get this knife fixed. I want it back in working condition. Because what I had done to the blade was just horrible. I mean, I never even carried this knife because of how bad I sharpened it. I removed a lot of material. And I'll show you guys some close-ups of this later. So she went ahead, had the blade replaced. About 3 months passed, and she contacted me through email and said the knife was ready to go, asked for my PayPal information, told me that since it had taken so long that they were going to skip charging me for the reblasting of the handles, and they also replaced the washers that are inside the knife. So I got the blade, the reblast of the handles, and new washers for $150. Received the knife back, and it looks practically brand new. And all this because Matthew Forrest took it upon himself to speak to Chris Reeve Knives on my behalf. I was practically done with it. I'd given up on the fact that this knife would ever be functional again. I could use it as is, but I was so embarrassed by the blade, I never wanted to bring it out. I never wanted to carry it, so it sat in my drawer, basically, for years. I've now got a Sabenza 21 I can tote in my pocket and not be ashamed of the sharpening job on. Getting back to Chris Reeve customer service, though, I'm still ambivalent about the whole scenario. I'm happy that the knife is fixed. I'm really glad the blade has been replaced. I don't like how it was all handled from the start, though. Just the fact that a viewer of my channel had to speak on my behalf to get this resolved, it just irks me. Chris Reeve and his company, or whoever's running the show, should have taken it upon themselves to fix this the first time I sent it in. I do feel a little better now that it's repaired, but the effort that was put forth to get to this point, I don't think was justified. It should have never had to come to this. I've got these lined up as well as I can to try to show you how much I actually removed from the knife. You can definitely tell in the tip quite a bit of material was removed. This direction, you can't quite tell the difference on how much material was removed, but I did take quite a bit of material off of this edge. So you can tell here how thick the tip got, how much I got into that. It's pretty doggone symmetrical considering what I had to do to it. This is what it should look like. Now, the way I understand it, Chris Reeve S35VN has had a better heat treatment the past few years than what they had when I first purchased my knife. So I am looking forward to sharpening this guy at some point. At least now I know what I'm doing, and I won't remove so much steel. Not to mention now, if the edge starts to crumble like it did originally, I know I need to contact Chris Reeve before I continue further. Looking at the new blade, looking at the edge, you can see it's pretty wavy. The grind is not very good, but it's a factory grind. What can you expect? Hopefully that's not a issue with the main grind and it's just an issue with the sharpening job. I'll know more once I get it on the stones and start sharpening it myself. I want to say thank you to Matthew Forrest for taking it upon himself to contact these guys for me. I don't think this knife ever would have been in the shape it is currently had he not done that. So thanks, I really do appreciate it. If you guys have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. And I appreciate you watching. Y'all have a good one.